I am so excited to start this presentation with Sensory 101 for parents. I absolutely love talking about sensory processing and really reflect on when I think about the world of how we process all eight senses in our world. We get to think about things in different perspectives. And so this presentation is going to go ahead and talk about all of our eight senses and a few extra bonuses at the end. So we'll go ahead and start with visual. So our eyes and how we process things with our eyes. When I love thinking about our senses, we're thinking about times when we are overly sensitive and maybe things are just too much. So we can see on this left-hand side, we have our small cup. Another way of describing this is calling it as sensory over responsive. So we're over responding to things because the stimulus is really intense in our world. So for visual processing, this might really be where we're just like, ooh, this is way too much. So those really bright lights or fluorescence can even facilitate a headache. Maybe the sunlight can be far too much for our system to be able to handle. So we might really prefer to wear sunglasses or have hats that kind of cover our brim and kind of make sure we're a little bit more protected visually. Another thing we might see is individuals might be overwhelmed with eye contact. So this can be a really common one if we are just overstimulated visually. We might just be kind of moving and looking our eyes around rather than looking directly at someone when we're having a conversation. Some other things to consider is a really big cup. So this is more of a sensory seeker. So this is me. I'm needing more. So I'm under responsive and I'm needing to get more feedback from my world to help meet that threshold. And so we call this the big cup responder. So we're just kind of filling, we need more, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. And then we've hit that threshold to where our body is ready to go and feeling good. So we might seek out more visual input. So this might be enjoying really shiny things or spinny or bright colors. Colorful clothing can be a really common one. Enjoying like painting and kind of those visual arts can be a common one for those that are more of a sensory seeker when it comes to visual input. We're going to go ahead and dive into some of the strategies that I love for visual input. So when we're thinking about alerting input, we're talking about things that are a little bit brighter, a little bit more uplifting. This might be that higher contrast as well. So things that are changing or moving patterns, any of those things that have kind of that visual stimulus, right? We're changing, there's a contrast piece to it. Maybe it's a little bit faster. This helps to increase our arousal level, our alertness level. And so things that are going to have this higher contrast can help increase that threshold to where we're becoming a little bit more on the alert side. So these are things, I always love when I'm thinking about myself. I do love red. Yellow is not necessarily my favorite color, but I do love like reds and purples and kind of those alerting input. I also have like a little LED that bright, reds and purples, and I gravitate a little bit more towards that to have kind of that contrast changing color. So it kind of flows through this really lovely moving pattern. And I'll use that, when I'm cleaning or things like that, just kind of to have that extra light. It's really, really lovely. Now we're going to go ahead and dive into calming. So things that are calming, we've got a little bit more of those blues, those darker, a little bit more rhythmic. So things like blue and green shades are usually going to be a little bit more on that calming side. So really, really great for those small cup moments, needing to just kind of decrease that arousal level because maybe our cup has overflowed and we're becoming a little bit overstimulated. So having those blue and greens can be really powerful. Having a dim or dark room. So a lot of times I notice, when I'm, especially in the evening, if I've had a day where I've been around a lot of fluorescent lights, I'm definitely seeking out turning down the overhead lights in my house and having more of like a candlelight or something where we have just a little bit more of that damper on the world. And it really is one where, especially if we get to take like an eye break, that can be a really powerful one where things get to just kind of tone down visually. So it's not as overstimulating. It can be a little bit easier for our eyes if we've had a moment where we've had a lot going on. And then any sort of like diffuser, I love my diffuser. It's one that kind of is like a little globe and it kind of flows in and out and it has a really, really calming, it's very, very calming. This PNS, this is our parasympathetic nervous system activation. So this is our rest and digest system in our body. And it really helps our system, we're at ease, we're calm, we're safe. And a lot of these really, really powerful calming visuals can be very, very supportive to help cue our body, hey, you're safe, you're protected, and you are calm. We'll dive into olfactory or our nose. So, when we're thinking about things with our body and things that really bring so much joy, I think about smelling plants. I love being out in nature. I love being surrounded by just the smells of the earth. And so we'll dive into some of those fun things that we can use as a family and kind of encourage and reflect on, if you have a child that's seeking out certain input, how we can kind of build these in to help meet those cup needs. So let's dive into the cups for our olfactory or our scent processing. So when we have our small cup, again, we're quick to overflow, more of that, oh, it's too much. So these are the times where we're probably bothered by different smells, things that have a really, really high intensity with perfumes or really potent foods, or going into like a Macy's store can be such a visually and olfactory overstimulating place because I know at least the space where I go, there is right at the start that perfume section and the really bright fluorescent lights. So just kind of thinking about some of those things in our world where if your child is having a heightened response to certain stores, this is just thinking about, oh, I wonder if there's a possibility of the scent, or as we previously talked about, the light, and how that could kind of create a reactive system and overflow our cup where we might go into overload and have those moments where we're dysregulated, we're upset, we're screaming, maybe having a tantrum. But those are those moments where we have overflowed our neurological cup and we are in a state of dysregulation. And so finding some of those strategies and having these strategies in your back pocket are very, very powerful. So this is probably a time where we get to talk about food as well. So smells are very connected with food, right? Every time we are bringing food up to our mouth, it is such a close space to where we need to be able to handle the smell to then be able to handle the taste. And we'll go into some more strategies on taste as well, but just wanting to highlight that interconnectedness. There's so much with meal times where we need to actually be able to see. We need to be able to touch the food and be okay with that texture. We need to be able to smell it, and then we need to be able to taste it and tolerate that taste. If we are on this right-hand column, more of a big cup for smell, we're needing more. So we might like smell all sorts of things. We might be the ones going around and smelling all the flowers. We might not also notice certain odors because we're just kind of aware that there's so many in the world versus this hyper attunement on the left-hand side with our smell cup. We're really, really attuned to different smells. So we might not pick up on as much because we're just starting to fill our cup up with smell and scent input. So let's dive into some of our strategies. With alerting input, we are thinking about potent, powerful, spicy, and higher level. So mint, citrus, spicy foods, things that have a lot of really profound smells. So I'm thinking like curries and chai and things that are really, really robust with flavor, different salsas, right? Lots and lots of scent coming in and that very close interconnection with nose and mouth. So this is really, really great for those that are under responsive and need more. We're big cup moments, right? We're filling it up, filling it up. So I definitely present with more of a larger cup for olfactory. I catch myself smelling the roses, stopping and just kind of noticing the smells and moving around and just kind of noticing all of the different things. I really love different spicy foods, different essential oils, lots and lots of things like mint and citrus are things that I would seek out as well. Let's dive into calming. So these are really great for moments when we have a smaller cup, we're overstimulated, we might be at a state where we're just, it's a little bit too much. So these are really, really great when we're thinking about that mindful moment. So having a cup of tea or a cup of hot cocoa and just kind of sitting and smelling and noticing the sensation and the scent. So warmth is also really, really calming for our system as well. When we're thinking about things that we get to smell, lavender and chamomile are a really, really common thing where our nose is usually a little bit more on the, ooh, this is really lovely, very calming to smell. The interconnectedness comes now with oral processing, which is also called gustatory. So let's dive in. Have a little bit of a different graphic for this one. So when we're thinking about our small cup moments here on the left-hand side, this sensory over responsive for taste would be a really common one of someone who is a picky eater. So we may really gag or avoid certain food textures, have a self limited diet, have a preference for bland food, not adding much spice, don't like foods to touch or mix, and frequently avoiding toothbrushing because there's a lot of input. Especially, I notice the top teeth much more sensitive than the bottom teeth, typically, unless there's something going on dental wise. But there's just so much like tickling that we can feel up on the top of our mouth. So that is something just to kind of consider if you're noticing or seeing any of these experiences in your child or in yourself. A lot of this is just about thinking about how you and your family process different information throughout the day. On our right hand side, we have the sensory seeker. This is the I am biting, I need more, please fill me up. So we may see individuals who chew on lots of things, biting nails, chewing on a shirt, twisting or kind of biting hair, chewing on objects. Tops of pencils is a common one I see. Seeking vibration or higher level and higher intensity. So sour, spicy, and salty, really, really high level input to our mouth. And then vibration. So maybe really loves electric toothbrush versus the tickle sensation might be so overwhelming for an electric toothbrush for someone who is sensory over responsive. It can be a really great tool to build up the tolerance and engagement because vibration in general is just a really high level, gives us a lot of input, helps us know where our cheek is, where our mouth is, where our tongue is, just helps us get a lot of feedback of our body. And then just some daily, these are things that you might already be doing on a daily basis. So you might have a favorite gum. This also helps to actually increase our saliva production when we're sucking on a mint or chewing on gum. It's very kind of soothing motion to chew. Chapstick. Maybe you really love a certain chapstick and that really smooth input onto your mouth is really, really grounding and very calming. And then maybe you seek out that crunch sensation. You also are getting a little bit of heavy work when you're chewing and chewing and chewing when we have input like crunchy or chewy foods. So carrot sticks, pretzel sticks, jerky, dried mangoes, granola bars, things like that give a lot of input to our mouth. It can be really, really regulating. Nice after school snack. When we're diving specifically into alerting taste, we're thinking about kind of similar to that olfactory, that smell piece, spicy, flavorful, mint, and cold can be very, very alerting. I always love recommending those that just need more input. Having a straw because we're getting heavy work of our mouth and all of our oral motor muscles when we are sucking through a straw, and cold water to tolerance, of course, of comfort of teeth. But I think that like really powerful is like soda water through a straw with a little bit of lemon. Wow. And it's cold, right? Cold, it's high level, bubbly, so much input, very, very alerting for our mouth. So really, really great to kind of give tons of feedback to our mouth as we are maybe seeking it out. So if we see the biting of nails, or we see the input where our body is having those moments where we're just needing more, this can be a really powerful way to kind of just think about even one, elixir drink that can help to give that input to help meet that threshold where we're maybe not biting on things that we shouldn't be biting on. And then calming. So this is an interesting one, right? Because we still have a little bit of those spices and flavors, but usually we have a little bit more of that, like kind of smooth, that like tea, hot chocolate that's a little bit more calm. Very similar again to olfactory strategies here. And maybe there's a couple different mint flavors, maybe mints that are not as potent as like Altoids, things like that. Like a dinner mint can be a really, really nice one that can be calming, that input of that gentle rhythmic sucking, feeling the sensation of it melting in your mouth can be really, really powerful. Ears, heading into auditory input. When we're thinking about how we process things in our world, we can really, really notice a lot with auditory input. It's kind of an immediate safety, prevention, protective cue. When we hear a loud noise, we're alerting and we're turning to it. And so, a lot of times, when our system on the right hand side over here, when we are overloaded and we have a smaller cup for auditory input, we might startle really, really fast or become very overwhelmed when we have those sudden or very loud noises. Might really struggle focusing and attending to things if we're overly distracted by those noises, because there's just so much our brain is trying to pick up on. We've got so many cues that our body has throughout the day, right? So many cues where maybe our body is interpreting it as danger. And so our system, from a protective piece, is turning and responding. So that over responsive, that small cup moment with auditory input can be something that I see a lot of individuals struggle with, because we may have had experiences where we've really needed to use those cues for protection. So traumatic experiences or having something suddenly go off. I think about the public bathroom and the experiences that I've had when talking with families, and they're really sharing the sudden and very, very concerning. Oh my goodness, the automatic toilet flushed, right? There was that one move on the toilet and it was unexpected, it was loud, it was wet, and it was startling, and how much of a perceived sensory trauma that can feel for individuals, especially children who are learning to use the bathroom and then going out into the public bathroom and having that moment occur. Another one I hear very frequently is the auto hand dryer as well, right? Walking by and having it suddenly blow hot air in your face, unknown, it's unexpected. And it is so, so loud that our system is perceiving it as danger. And so we really recall and log those moments in our brain where we have had those moments where we remember, oh, I know this space or I know this room has something that was kind of scary. And so this can be a really, really overwhelming time for individuals, especially as we're getting used to different bathrooms, as we're learning to bathroom and go out in different areas and different environments. And we may really prefer more of a quiet environment, or really not really want to go into those bathrooms because of those experiences. So that can be something that I do support families with, is just kind of how do we progress through to help build up and increase that threshold to be able to integrate into the community in all aspects. And then those that have a really big cup for auditory input, humming and whistling, maybe making some noises. We also might not frequently respond when our name is being called because we're maybe making those noises. So that can be a common one as well. Another thing too, though, is some individuals who have a smaller cup hum to where they're blocking out the noise that is too much and they're controlling the sound. So that can be an interesting one to decipher between the two. Alerting auditory input is really going to help increase our arousal level, our alertness level. So things that are unexpected, right? The perfect example would be that unexpected noise going off in the public bathroom. Things that are unexpected when we're changing beats and kind of having that mixed beat, it is also unexpected for our auditory system. So we're kind of like, oh, whoa, it's processing and it's like flipping pretty quickly to something different. So it's really like catching our attention and increasing our alertness and attention to that specific sound because it's changing. There's a lot of variety. There's that kind of versatility of different frequencies as well. So things to kind of keep in mind when you're thinking about, well, everyone's kind of low energy. Like, I wonder what we could do. That might be a perfect time to put on music that's a little bit higher level, maybe a little bit louder, that faster beat. Dancing and having that movement along with this louder input usually is going to increase that alertness level of the household. And then calming auditory input. This is one that I support clients with very, very frequently because those that have had those experiences very, very quickly can flip into, oh, wow, that's way, way, way too loud. So when we're considering these moments of overwhelm and small auditory moments, considering things that are quieter, calmer, gentle music that maybe doesn't have any sounds, like classical music or nature sounds, going out in nature and listening to the birds. Oh, what a calming nervous system activity. I love it so much. When we're thinking about kind of that rhythmic beat specific to music, a lower bass can be very, very regulating for our nervous system. And at about 70 beats per minute is what research says about having kind of that very calming beat, very consistent. It's not unexpected like the alerting slide, right? It's very expected, very consistent. And then any sort of noise canceling headphones or noise reducing earplugs. So these are loop earplugs. I love them. They have different levels of strategies. So they're going to be at different decibel levels. So there's some that are like specific when you go to a concert, to where you're not listening to the things that are right near you, but you can still hear the band playing. Some other ones are tiered to a different decibel level to where you can hear all the things around you and the things right in front of you. It just is toning down the actual loud volume. So it can be really, really supportive for parents when you're, in the home and making sure everyone is still safe, but just the volume needs to just damper down just a little bit. Loops are really, really great for that. We are going to dive into touch or tactile processing. When we're thinking about our hands and our skin, all the different things our body can process, when we are over responsive, sensory over responsive, we've got our small cup. We might be sensitive to a lot of different things. So we might be anxious of different touch. We might not like massages. We might kind of avoid different sensations. We might really get overwhelmed when we have a messy face or messy hands. We might really pick at our, tags or pick at certain clothes or different seams kind of are bothersome. Those that have a big cup for tactile input, we're seeking out a lot of different things. We might run our hands along, feeling different textures, noticing different sensations. We also, because we're so engaged with our hands, we might not have the awareness until we visually look at our hands that our hands are dirty. And we sometimes have a higher pain threshold. If we bumped into something, we might not have as much of a response as someone who is over responsive might have to pain or perceived pain. These are some fun daily activities as a family that can be really, really lovely. So crafts, there's so many different textures, pottery, yarn, beads, paint, all sorts of fun things. Gardening, noticing the different textures, dry versus wet, playing in mud or a mud kitchen, and then baking or cooking. So many different things with flour and mixing, and again, that wet versus dry combination of awareness of tactile input. Cold usually is going to be just like taste. Cold usually is going to be a little bit more alerting. So holding an ice cube and noticing it melt, or holding an ice pack and just kind of putting it on your hands or your wrists can be really, really regulating. Rough textures, things that have a little bit more feedback. So I think those like sensory boards, ones that have the fuzzy and the bumpy and the sequins, really, really different versatile input that is going to be helping to increase. And then light touch. So a game that might be fun is like a feather on a hand and then closing your eyes and just noticing and then pointing where you've felt the sensation on your body. A head scratcher, one of those ones you put on your hand and it kind of goes around with the little metal prongs. So fun. So fun. And what a like woo when you like kind of get that input. We're alerted. Our system is definitely alerted. There's a lot of nerve endings on the back of our neck as well and on our head. So that can be a piece of why it can be very, very unexpected and then therefore alerting and increasing our arousal level. Calming input. We're thinking about things that are warm and soothing and deep pressure and consistent. These can really help us calm down if we've got a small cup moment. So times where we get to think about neutral warmth. Again, instead of an ice pack, we might hold a warm pack. Put our hands kind of near the fire if we've got a fireplace, of course, in a safe space with everyone, and maybe noticing just kind of the sensation of like a candle. I think even just putting my hands in warm water or my feet in warm water can be really, really calming if I'm having moments where I'm just kind of overloaded. It can be really, really soothing to have this neutral warmth. Deep pressure touch, very, very calming, kind of squeezing our arms, squeezing our hands, giving us that deep squeeze input to our body can be so, so regulating. It's, thinking of like a baby getting swaddled, right? We're just squeezing our body and just really, really in a state where we are telling our nervous system, we're okay, we're safe. I love to teach this too, where we get to practice. Do I really love a big squeeze or a little squeeze? And then it is one that your child can actually use themselves, right? We can ask for a massage, but we also can do self massage or self squeezes. It can be very, very calming for our system. And one where you don't need anything with you in that moment when you're needing to find a tool. This can be a really great one because all you need are your hands. Proprioception, we're diving into our next few pieces where our body is a little bit more hidden. We have proprioception, vestibular, and interoception for our final three hidden senses. Proprioception is our body awareness. So when we're thinking about feedback, we got our muscles over here on the right hand side. Every time we push, pull, and lift, we're getting that feedback, sending that signal to our brain, letting us know where we are in space. So that body awareness, as well as how much power to use to complete the task. So one, if we are over responsive, we might have a little bit more muscle weakness. We might also not prefer to do a lot of movement and take movement risks because we're just kind of, ooh, I'm a little unsure. Oh, I'm not quite sure where my body is. I don't know if I really want to initiate possibly bumping into something and getting hurt. If we are under responsive, we're needing a lot. So that's definitely me. I definitely love like hugs. I love to have like a weighted blanket. Smaller spaces is something you might see yourself or one of your children go to. So squeezing into that little nook in the couch is a really common one I hear. I just worked with a family and the little girl was squeezing herself between the ottoman and the couch. She like pulled the ottoman over and like squished your body. And I was like, these would be observations of needing more feedback. And it just was really, really grounding. And then like 10 minutes later, she ran across the room and crashed into the couch. Like really, really hard. So much feedback, so much input. So we might see where we get to seek out jumping, crashing, doing a lot of jumping on the bed, and then splat crashes would be a sign of someone who is sensory seeking and really just needing more feedback throughout their day. And we can brainstorm some strategies to help provide it and provide it in a safe way. So, daily activities, these are things you might already notice you do or your child does. So, any of those like leg or hand movements, so squeezing your toes, noticing yourself just kind of squeezing different objects, or you've got a stress ball already that you use, joint compression throughout the day. So there's a lot with the gardening, as we already talked about, cooking, household chores, and yoga. Things where we're getting tons and tons of feedback, joint compression, joint retraction, pulling away, getting those isometric, the muscles from the front side and the back side working together can be really, really powerful. Lots and lots of great feedback with all of these kind of daily work activities that we would be doing throughout our day that are providing a lot of heavy work. And then things like tug of war, hanging on a monkey bar, holding onto a pull-up bar, things like that. These are really, really great for that joint retraction, which again still is giving input to our brain where our body is in space. And then alerting, so quicker, faster chains, jerkier movements, not as rhythmical. Again, kind of a similar theme. Things that are more unexpected are going to increase our arousal level. And then calming, so very grounded. We see almost all three of these. We have rhythmic, isometric on the left-hand side, right? So we have the sustained resistance of like a wall push or a wall push up. These are very, very grounding, very, very generally slower paced. So gentle neck rolls or doing kind of some stretches, and then rhythmic movement. So that might be kind of like a cat cow and watching some yoga videos together as a family. And vestibular processing, our second hidden sense. This is our sense in our inner ear. And so we've got the picture over here of swinging. So swinging can be a really, really powerful system. This is our vestibular system. We've got these three little loops on top. These are called our semicircular canals. One helps us understand that head movement forward and back, the second side to side, and the third rotary in a circle. And so times when we are big cup, we need more. We are the spinners. We are the ones that are seeking out lots of fast movement. Maybe we're running laps or doing all sorts of different fast-paced movements. We might also frequently like shift because we're just trying to get feedback and have a hard time sitting. So we're shifting a lot when we're seated. If we are sensitive to any of those senses, the forward, back, side to side, or in a circle, we might really have some nervousness with different head movement. So we might not like tilting back in space on a swing or a slide, or another common functional limitation we might see is tilting my head back in space to wash my hair. It can be a really limiting piece because of that head movement position. It can be nervous. We can feel uncomfortable. Our system is telling us like danger, danger, scary. It is and can be a very overwhelming sensation for our nervous system to feel like we might be falling and we need to catch and protect ourselves. Fearful with stairs, going up or down, we might really grab onto something because that up and down movement can be overwhelming. Escalators as well can be a really, really overwhelming one for someone who has a small cup for this movement sense. And then not liking to be tipped upside down. So that like rough house where we may tilt people or like do any sort of like somersaults, flipping back. I had we're thinking about things like swinging, right? Swinging and tilting back in space. So much input with that, but this might be a time where we might really, really get overwhelmed or scream or have those like scared flexion posturing where we're not wanting to tilt back in space. So when we're thinking about calming and grounding, swinging is so powerful, as well as just doing this kind of mindful head roll. We talked about all the sensations on the back of our head can be so, so powerful. So that tilting back and forth, rolling our head from side to side can be a really profound way to help just wake up our body. It can be a nice one to just kind of tilt our head back and forth into that no position as we kind of tilt, moving our body into that position. Waking up in the morning is a really, really great time for this. And then swinging, that input of 8 to 10 minutes can have an impact on our system for 8 hours. How powerful is that? It is so, so powerful to know that swinging or having a hammock outside or going to the park as a family how powerful this can be for our system. Alerting, these are going to be the ones where our big cup moments, we love to maybe tilt our head back in space. So focusing our eyes on a target, head inversions, so that would be our head is going down and below our heart level. So upside down bowling ball, rolling, like rolling something through our legs. Again, fast, jerky, and non-rhythmical is going to increase our arousal level or our alertness level. And then calming, usually for most systems, that rhythmic back and forth in the line, that linear input, be very, very calming for our nervous system. Rocking in a rocking chair, again, very rhythmical, back and forth, very calming. And then you might just consider, like maybe you're already doing some of these movements throughout the day, but that just gentle sway from side to side might be really, really calming for your system. We're diving into our eighth sense. This is interoception. And interoception is our internal gut sense. So, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to go to the bathroom? We also have a component of touch and how our emotions feel inside of our body. This is a sense that I love. This is also one that has like the newest research, 1970s, coming out to really start to really dive into. Wow, we have interoceptive receptors that tell our brain all of these things about our organ function and what our body may need. So if we are thinking about our gut signs, if we are under responsive, we're a big cup, we might need more. So we might miss those body cues, and it might be, oh my goodness, right at the very end are we responding. So hunger and hanger, common. And then thirst and being really thirsty and not knowing till we're dehydrated, or that urgency when you need to go to the bathroom. Small cup moments, we're having those slight sensation, right? We're getting that little cue, little ping from our bladder to the bathroom, to the bathroom, or I need to go. And it can be overwhelming, very, very overwhelming for our body. We might actually hear our own heartbeat, and it can be so distracting because that cue is so prominent inside of our body. We've got a small cup, one little signal, and we're like, oh, something's going on. There's an alert. And then changing in temperature can be really, really intense or feel overwhelming for our system. When we're thinking about just general strategies for interoceptive awareness, mindful being in the present moment is the number one tool. So this just consideration of breathing and heart rate awareness is going to be my recommendations to try. So breathing activities, there's lots of different breathwork games. We've got different animal breathing cards, all sorts of different things. But just one curiosity right now as you're watching is, are you breathing from your chest or do you notice your belly? This pause and reflection can be so incredibly powerful for our system when we're considering this interoceptive cue of breath rate. And then heart rate as well. So thinking about things that are going to give us feedback. So sometimes we might feel right in our neck, our heartbeat. We can feel it on our chest. Those are usually the two that I'll teach. Occasionally we can teach, finding it on our wrist as well. We also can use a pulse oximeter that's going to go ahead and give us a heartbeat, or even a heart rate monitor. A lot of Apple Watches and smartwatches now have a heart rate feature to it. Can be really, really nice when we're doing kind of like biofeedback. It can provide a lot of real-time feedback as well. So a lot of like heart rate games that I love to do with clients is trying like high level. So we're doing 20 jumping jacks or 20 squats or a wall sit, and then we're following it up with a deep breath. So we're taking our heart rate after that higher level intensity, noticing the beat is higher and maybe it's more profound and prominent in our body for our breath or our heartbeat. And then that contrast of finding those moments of slowing and noticing it getting calmer and quieter and slower. So this is really, really lovely when we're thinking about like a pounding, that overwhelming high level big muscle movements versus a little tap. also can relate very, very, very deeply with emotions. Thinking about hot emotions usually is going to increase our heart rate. So we're starting to get angry. We might have that cue from our heart letting us know, ooh, where is my, oh, yeah, that is my warning that something is changing in my body. It can be so empowering for individuals to learn and identify and find these powerful cues. Temperature awareness is the last tool that we'll talk about here. We've talked about this a little bit of how we can use it for alerting and for calming. But thinking about a hand soak or holding an ice pack versus holding a heat pack, that alternating sensation, those contrast sensations, can be so lovely for our bodies to learn the differences between that feedback throughout our day. So it also can heighten our awareness of temperature and increase our interoceptive awareness. So just a couple other ideas to start you off. And if you would like to learn more and work with me in multiple different ways, there's some wonderful ways where we can connect and start to engage and share learning more through a YouTube channel or through my podcast called Sensory Empower Podcast. So you can like and subscribe and follow along. If you are interested, I have a monthly membership program called Sensory Self Care, and I love supporting families. I am really, really gearing this towards adults who might have sensory overwhelm, sensory seeking, sensory sensitive moments, and we go through a lot of holistic tools like EFT tapping and kind of learning and reviewing how we can use EFT tapping to release and open our meridian channels. I love to teach different breathwork techniques to help calm our system, somatic release through some movement and some yoga. And then I always have a training program that will go through different strategies. We've been talking about interoception a lot and different ways where we can increase our feedback from our body to help us feel more empowered. And so we meet the second Thursday of the month on Zoom at 5 Pacific. And this QR code here, if you're interested, will get you 50% off by using this code. If you'd like to join us, our next call is March 13th. And I am so excited to announce my Sensory 101 for kids. This is my ebook, and this is already available on Amazon, and you can go ahead and download now. And I tried to make it really reasonably priced. And this goes through all of our 8 senses, and you get to go through as a family, and you get to practice all the things that we can think about for our eyes and our nose and our mouth. And we even have a lot of those body awareness, vestibular processing, and interoceptive awareness activities. So Sensory 101 for Kids is an ebook that I am so excited to bring out into the world. And I would just love, love, love any feedback that you have. And really, it is really facilitating this cohesion and engagement as a family. So all of these kind of hands-on experiments, kind of sciencey experiments to help with increasing this awareness of what your body is telling you and learning about the sensory profiles and sensory differences in your family. And if you would like to follow along, I have a Facebook group as well, just some posts and educational content. This is a QR code for the Facebook group. Would love for you to join. And any other resources, Instagram and Facebook, following along and just kind of joining in on this community support. And I thank you so much. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I would love to support. I provide parent consulting online and would love to meet with you and just kind of go through some of the things that we have shared today at the webinar, but also being able to just kind of dive in and see if diving in a little bit more with some deeper work would be supportive for you and your family. Thank you so much for joining me for this Sensory 101 for Parents webinar, and I will talk with you soon.